Okay, well, you said it. I didn't know what it really was until 2018. What is it? Like, what is you said what is it? I have some ideas, but I can't fully understand what it truly is, other than when I go to the store of value topic, I'm like, that seems the most sense to me, and the fact that it can be held offline and remain anonymous and all of those things. But the store of value kind of gets defeated most of the time because either A, it's volatile, or B, or as a medium of exchange. The other argument is like, if I think it's going up, why would I ever pay someone in Bitcoin? So from your perspective, I'm just a dumb real estate guy from Texas. What is Bitcoin?
Yeah, don't worry, I'm dumb too. So that's two of us.
The more the following we get online, the dumber we become to everybody else. Isn't that kind of the way it works? Elon
100%.
Musk is apparently like the dumbest person in the world now.
It's so true. There's an inverse correlation. The promise of Bitcoin from the white paper is, electronic peer-to-peer cash. So just think money on the internet, not backed by a central bank. So kind of no one controls it, if you will. We can go down that path and kind of talk about like, hey, here's what it's supposed to be. I think the easier way to kind of understand it is just like the way that I view Bitcoin is that nobody will argue the world is going to get less automated. Like the world is going to be more automated in the future, and most people agree with that. And so when you look at every single thing in your life, software has slowly but surely eaten into it, right? Software eating the world. To me, Bitcoin is simply an automated central bank. So it is a monetary institution that happens to be codified via software code that has stated this is what our monetary policy is going to be. Regardless of what happens in the world, we are not going to change. And we have a limited supply. So finite, limited supply with a programmatic monetary policy. And the reason why that becomes interesting to me is that it's pretty much 180 degrees opposite of every other currency in the world. Every other currency says we have humans that are going to make variable decisions based on what's happening in the world, and there's an unlimited supply. And so if you know anything about tech investing, basically you have to do something different than everyone else, and you have to be right. So like Bitcoin, just from a structural standpoint, checks the box of it is definitely doing something different than everybody else. Where the debate comes in is it right? And so when I started to look at it, the thing that I kept saying to myself was just like, man, the fact that it doesn't change is going to be so important in a world that appears to be accelerating change. And I think 2020 and 2021 was like a perfect example. We had like the shortest recession in history in March and April. Then we had trillions of dollars printed, fiscal policy. It was like money falling out of the sky. We were bailing out industries. We're like doing all these different things. And at the same time, Bitcoin is going through that exact same world. It's just doing exactly what it's programmed to do. And so I realized, I was like, oh, wait a second. Monetary policies in the fiat world are reactionary. They react to what's happening. And that is really put on a pedestal as a positive. Bitcoin says, no, we're not going to react to the world. We simply are going to continue to do what we say we're going to do. And so remain kind of disciplined or programmatic. Now, when you look at it from managing an economy standpoint, reacting to what's happening is viewed as a positive. But what it does is it makes it very hard on the individual level to plan your life. If you were at the beginning of 2020 thinking that, inflation was going to be 2% and you were making investment or financial decisions on that, pretty much by like mid 21, you were like, oh shit, I miscalculated, right? It's like, that's only 18 months. And then you're like, okay, interest rates are zero. So you make some other financial decisions. And then like pretty much a year later, you're like, oh shit, nope, interest rates are flying up, right? Like things got more expensive. And so it's very hard for you to plan long-term if the cost of capital keeps changing, if the monetary policy changes, and also fiscal, but mainly monetary. Bitcoin just solves all that. And it just says like, no, we're just going to do what we say we're going to do. Now, what that leads to is the world trying to figure out, well, what the hell is this thing worth, right? And to your comment about like the volatility of Bitcoin is non-existent, right? Bitcoin is not volatile. It's the exchange price that's volatile. And so the same thing is like the dollar isn't necessarily volatile, right? $1 is $1. It's what can the $1 buy you that is volatile, the exchange price. Now, they're both volatile to a degree. Bitcoin's obviously more volatile from a percentage standpoint. But over the last 2 years, the dollar's lost 20% of its purchasing power. Bitcoin's up, right? So it's like, pick your favorite timeline, twist the data however you want. It's like they're both moving, and you can look at it like that. And then the last thing I would say is, like, to your point about store of value, in my opinion, if Bitcoin becomes the global store of value, similar to like how I would look at like a real estate type asset class across the world, that would be a win. If it just became a store of value, I think while some of the most hardcore Bitcoiners would not be happy, they would feel like it failed. I think for most people, that would be a win. If it then can also become a medium of exchange and even maybe a unit of account, that's like all icing on the cake to me. But just creating a digital store of value that you control, that you can plan your life around, I think would have immense positive impact on, billions of people around the world. But we still got a lot of work to do, right? I mean, there's like 100 to 150 million people they estimate have Bitcoin. To get to billions, I mean, you're literally talking about 10x or more, increase in the user base. And so I think where you get a lot of the folks in the Bitcoin community, although they don't like to admit it, if you have a fixed supply asset and you think that 10x more people are going to come in and try to get it, the price will go up. And so there's this element of like supply demand economics take over, and people are capitalist / greedy. And so they want to hold an asset before everyone else that'll go up in price, right?
So is there anything about the promise of Bitcoin that's actually happening like today, or is it still like accumulate what you can because the promise is coming and you'll be glad that you have it all once the promise came? Or are there people today that would say like, I'm living out my Bitcoin dream right now?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I recently read a book, Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. And in it, he talks about this idea of like happiness is expectations minus reality. And so like, I think to answer the question of like, I'm living out my Bitcoin dream, like what is the dream, right? Did you expect it to be a unit of account by now? Well, like, no, you're not happy. If you expected it just to serve as a personal store of value, then you're actually pretty happy. Right? If you go back and you look, even though Bitcoin went all the way up to $69,000, it's now down like 75%, still around, let's call it $16,000, give or take. That's up 100%. It was like $8,000 starting 2020. So like since the pandemic, till now, it's basically doubled in price. There's a lot of people who are like, damn, that's better than my stock portfolio or my bonds or, whatever else in value. The question is just like, do you have the stomach to ride volatility of, 8,000 to 64,000, back down to 30, back up to 69, back down to 16. Like that's a lot of volatility in there. And so what it does is it actually incentivizes dollar cost averaging into what many people, including myself, believe is a great asset, and then just hold it for a long time, which if I was not talking about Bitcoin, you would be like, oh, that's like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, right? Like just like buy great assets, hold them forever. I'm assuming in real estate, you guys do similar things. The question of what's a great asset, though, is where a lot of the debate lies.